So Lyndsay, obviously you've got some quite interesting views regarding brands and how brands are probably going to have to rethink about things as we come out of lockdown. Is that fair?
Yeah, that is definitely fair. I think that brands can no longer be mediocre. I think those that have possibly relied on that just simply won't cut it in this next phase. And I also think, and I mentioned this the other day, that I think that brands more than ever have to really live and believe in what they're saying. You know, it's not good anymore. It's not good enough anymore just to talk the talk. We absolutely have to talk that talk and walk that walk, both with our customers and more importantly with our staff. I think that's really crucial and fundamental. So yeah, I see it's a really holistic approach, I think, in the next phase.
It's a really interesting time, isn't it? Because I do think that you can tell the brands that really do care about the customer and the ones who are probably have an arrogance towards the customer. And it'll be interesting to see how all that plays out as we come out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that there's brands that I'm sure we can all pick off the top of our heads, the Hawksmoors and the Dishomes that just get it right. You know, the reason that they're busy is because you walk into a Hawksmoor, for instance, and you know you feel that love, you feel that energy. The food that you have is great. They believe in it. The staff believe in it, and I think that they're the brands as we come out of this that people or customers will naturally navigate back to. You know, the places that they've been in the past, that they can trust, that they've already had great memories from, that they know the staff are going to be excited to be back, and they and their friends are going to be excited to be back as well. So, you know, for me, brands like that, I perceive no big problem with them in the future. I genuinely think that whilst it might take them a couple of months to get back, I think they will get back and they'll start flying again. It's it's those that have forgotten their way, perhaps, that I think will have a more challenging time coming out of this.
And when you say forgotten, you mean forgotten their brand values or forgotten the reason why they did it?
You know, I've been in the sector a long time now, and I think it's very easy to get caught up in revenue and year-on-year growth and bums on seats and, you know, the difficulties that the staff and the customers posed the night before, and, you know, being mired in that complexity of problems. And actually, we often forget why we do it. We forget that we initially wanted to create that great local bar with that sense of, you know, local community, or that great sustainable restaurant that really supports, you know, British farmers, or, you know, there's a lot of that almost gets lost, I think, particularly as you grow, particularly as you go from 1 or 2 sites into, you know, 3 or 4 and more. We have this saying in the QSR world, which is 1 to 7, 7 to 17, 17 to 77 is kind of that maximum of how it grows, you know, and it's really tough to maintain those initial values and to really keep that real core sense of the customers as you move forward. And the brands that have done that well, you know, the Gales Bakery, the Pêche Langers, you know, that's why they're so successful. They've really maintained that initial value.
No, I agree. You know, do you think the consumer is going to change as we come out? Do you think they'll look for something different?
I think that consumers will be less frivolous at the back end of this. So I think that particularly probably in places like London, we've maybe been a little bit too frivolous with our money, maybe just out and about a bit too much. And I think that people will very much consider how they're spending next. I think that a lot of people have enjoyed being in the house. There's been a real, you know, coming back to cooking, to entertaining. And so I think those things will compete very directly with the restaurant industry. And, you know, and that will therefore have a huge effect on our going out and our spending.
Well, it's one of the really interesting aspects of this lockdown, isn't it? Actually, a lot of people have actually enjoyed it. Being at home, being with their families, cooking, as you rightly say, having time to spend doing different things. And actually, it's almost oblivious to the tidal wave that's probably coming our way. And it's going to be, it's not, because it's actually mentally, it's very hard for a lot of these people to prepare for what is actually probably coming.
Agreed. I think, and this is not to take away from how difficult this has been for many people, but I do think that we've been in some element of a bubble. Things like furlough, the good weather, you know, just the sense of change, the sense of camaraderie that I think has come with lockdown. And actually, I probably, like many, I'm kind of nervous of what that next stage is, not least for the restaurant industry and what that looks like for the industry, but also what that looks like in terms of staff coming off furlough, economic slowdown, and then also just things like people going back into work. I mean, there are people that have stopped now and have actually realized how much they dislike their workplace, how much they dislike their job. And getting those people back into work, I think is going to be incredibly difficult. I, for one, have got numerous friends that are dreading going back.
Funnily enough, I think that's the bigger challenge. I mean, everyone keeps telling us about lack of trust on hygiene to get into the offices. I don't think that's the issue. I just think actually the evidence is already there pre the crisis that people didn't want to go to work and weren't enjoying it. Is actually how we adapt workspaces again.
Yeah. I mean, and no more so, I think, than in our industry. You know, this isn't the world's easiest industry. Being guest focused is tough. It's long hours. It's not bankers' bonuses. It's not an easy ride. You know, it's a lot of passions. It's a lot of grit. It's a lot of resilience. It's a lot of tough days and tough conversations. And actually, you know, now you're asking people to go back into it, and I'm sure there'll be more than a few that'll say, I'm kind of done, or you know what, that company and their values doesn't match my values, or actually I just don't want to work at the pace I was working at before. I think that a lot of this will be a challenge, and for me, I think probably the biggest thing for any company is really facing up to that now and being very honest about the culture that they've created so far and how they can integrate staff back into the business and really get the most out of them.
And how do you think leadership's going to have to change? Leaders are going to have to change, because actually the communication challenge for leaders is going to get greater and greater, isn't it? Let alone for marketeers and how they actually try to engage audiences again.
Yeah. I listened right at the very start of lockdown to an amazing piece, and I would recommend everybody listen to it. It's Simon Sinek, whom everybody loves, and it's Why Leaders Eat Last. And it's a great piece on what not to do as a leader. And actually, I for one watched it and thought, tick, tick, tick. I had seen a lot of those examples, you know, as an employee. And I think a lot of that old thinking, like, just get done, just work harder, just longer hours, just more. I'm genuinely not convinced that's going to cut it next. I think what we'll need from our leaders is a real sense of honesty, of appreciation, understanding, a lot more open communication, a lot less just sort of tick boxing learning and development, but actually a real true staff culture.
I think that's actually spot on. And in marketing, how about marketing? How about in terms of how you engage the consumer again or the customer?
I think for marketing, I think there's a real opportunity right now for brands to A, go back to those initial values that I spoke about earlier, and B, also to be seen almost as a guiding light to the consumer. You know, people, I think, do naturally trust brands, and therefore, how can they offer support? How can they show, you know, excitement and opportunity and, you know, all these kind of things? I think brands have to be very honest and really positive, actually. And where they can't be positive, then, you know, then they have to be really honest about that. And, you know, I think we've all seen that through lockdown. Take the Dominic Cummings 101 to branding. You know, just lying and just thinking that you're above it isn't going to cut it. And compare that with the CEO of Zoom, whose name I don't recall, but right at the start of lockdown, Zoom obviously went from, you know, 20 million users to like 200 million users a day. And they had a security breach based on that. And day one, they came out, as soon as they understood that that breach had happened, they came out and they owned it. They said, look, it's not good enough. This is why it happened. It's because we've grown so massively over this time. This is what we're doing round the clock to sort that. That news story didn't even last 24 hours. You know, compare that with Dominic Cummings, with the cloak and dagger. And, you know, people know now, they're not stupid. I think we have to be honest. We have to lead from the front. We have to be positive. I think that's what will win it for brands.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? How do you see the restaurant market evolving as we come out? I mean, there's obviously been reports that they reckon that 50% of kind of high street restaurants will probably face CVAs, which is obviously concerning. But will it, do you think it's bounced back quicker than forecast? Or do you think it needs to change anyway? And do you think it is oversaturated?
I think all of those things, to be honest. I think all of those things are true. I think that, you know, the reason that we're seeing the CVAs is perhaps in that group of restaurants that we maybe consider more mediocre, like I said. I think that others will bounce back really quickly because their guests have just had great experiences in them in the past, and therefore they'll want to create new memories and new experiences. So I think those places that have got love will reap more love in the future. And I think that a lot of restaurants will need to really think hard about how they innovate and how they take all of that existing data and all of that existing knowledge about customers and how they actually use that to rebrand and to just realign their product and their offering slightly so that it's, I guess, future fit. I don't think any of us have got a crystal ball, but if we take a very honest look at our brands and take a very honest look at our companies and say, you know, what hasn't worked or what do we really need to do more of, I think that's where the big opportunity will come. And I think the really smart companies are doing that at the moment.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And how's lockdown affected you? How have you found lockdown personally?
You know, I've been incredibly fortunate actually in that my family and loved ones and friends have all been well through this. And so actually lockdown has given me the opportunity to take a step back and take a much needed step back. If I think about the last 10 years of my career, I mean, I've sprinted through it. So I moved into the food and beverage industry actually during the 2008 recession. I moved to America and took that opportunity to move into F&B. And, you know, since then I've kind of just been running at 100 miles an hour, gaining experience and, you know, a huge amount of hours, and some great, some less great. So actually, this has been a really nice chance for me just to step back and say, what are my values? What am I interested in? What does Lyndsay want next for this next chapter? And also be really honest about myself. Where have I not worked as smart as I could have? Where have I given more of me than I should have? Where could I honestly have done better? You know, like it's been a real reflective journey. I joked with a friend that I've been in podcast university since day one of lockdown, because I've just tried to take on and assimilate so much knowledge and thinking and different voices and just really use that to take this step back right now and just be truly reflective on it.
I mean, I think that's what's really good at the moment, is people really want to listen and learn. And actually there's a real call for collaboration, probably to a level we haven't seen before. So it'd be really interesting to see how things do emerge as we come out.
Yeah, one of my favourite things from lockdown actually, and one of my favourite learnings, has been how quickly businesses can mobilize when you take the politics and you take the process out of it. You know, so we've seen companies that have been able to launch initiatives in 3, 4, and 5 days that would have previously taken them 6 months. And a lot of that, I think, again, is back to that culture. So the culture has been solely focused on innovating, or it's been solely focused on saving the company. And therefore, everybody in the business's mind is on that one goal. And actually how quickly you can do things when people aren't politically competing with one another or being caught up in the minutiae or having to have things signed off by 100 different people. Like actually just solely being focused as a business on one thing and all of you driving for it. You know, people have created amazing things. There's been skills that have been created in 2 weeks. My friend heads up an online academy. From idea to completion, that was 2 weeks. And that was, you know, that was everything. Amazing. Just, I think some amazing stuff has come out this time.
And you've done a lot of work with entrepreneurs, haven't you, over the last few years, helping them in their marketing and their branding. How do you think the entrepreneurs are going to adapt during this period? And do you think do you need more help, or do you think they're going to thrive as they always seem to find a way through?
So my experience has been that there are entrepreneurs that it's just the core of what they do and who they are. And they wake up every day and they think about how to make it better, or they think about how to change things. And I think those entrepreneurs will do very well out of this. They'll be looking at this as a constant series of problems and solutions. And I think that there's other entrepreneurs that are wannabe entrepreneurs who like the idea of being an entrepreneur, but don't necessarily love the hard work, don't necessarily have that same drive and commitment. And so, I think like everything, those that are truly gunning for it, those that truly have a positive mindset, those that truly are solution focused, I think those entrepreneurs will have some great opportunity. And there's definitely there's definitely opportunity out there. There is, as there always is through difficult times, there'll be a lot of people that will come out of this and they'll do very well. And then there'll be those others that are not solution driven or aren't quite as innovative in their thinking that sadly will crash out.
Understand that. And you've worked with obviously entrepreneurs and in corporates. Do you have a preference yourself? Do you enjoy working one rather than the other? Because you always come across as being quite objective in the way you look at things.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm a sucker for business startups. There's nothing I find more exciting than when an idea is in the very seedling stage. I'm never happier than when I'm connecting people and ideas. So for me, I'm constantly drawn to business startup, innovation, exciting ideas, entrepreneurialism. I have often thought actually in my career, I probably should have done one or two big stints in the very kind of classic corporate, but it's not the journey I've taken, so I can't change it now, that's for sure.
Well, look, Lyndsay, thank you for today. Thank you for your insight. I think it's fair to say, I think we all expect quite an interesting journey, so it'd be great to see how you progress and to have you involved in all the things we do. So thank you. Thank you for your comments.
Thanks, Chris. Thank you too.